In looking back on your life with all the things you've done with your brokerage, your being a stockbroker, and with Shake a Leg and helping us, well, what are you most proud of?
Probably the fact that I was able to take on the federal government and win. Okay, and it was not easy. It was a 10-year battle. I mean, I had to get the state of Virginia behind me. I had to get the crime commission behind me in the state of Virginia. I had the congressman. I got University of Virginia Law School behind me. So it wasn't easy. It was a long, hard battle that I had to dig. And I never had an attorney. I never went to court. Okay. I was able to, with the University of Virginia Law School, they were able to finally arrange, they were going to sue the government.
Hmm.
That's how Bob Randall, the first patient, got it. His doctor got an attorney, and the attorney, Steptoe& Johnson, sued the government, and that's how he got it. Well, University of Virginia Law School was going to do the same thing for me. Now, they worked with me for 3 years, and then the class that he was working with.
Welcome to Golden Years Empowerment. My name is Gail Nichols, and I'm the host of this podcast. I want to welcome you because we help people stay strong, sharp, and thrive to 95. But before we proceed with today's conversation, I want to share something personally about my guest, Irvin Rosenfeld. Long before today's growing conversations about medical marijuana or cannabis, Irv was courageously living his truth as one of the few federally approved medical cannabis patients in the United States. And despite dealing with a very painful bone condition, he built a successful career, educated lawmakers across the country, and he dedicated his life to helping others. But my connection with Irv goes far beyond his pioneering medical journey. Many years ago, about 30 years ago, my late husband, Richard Cherry, and I were building Willow Cyber Center Network. It was an innovative company designed and patented to create meaningful work-from-home opportunities for people with disabilities and mobility challenges across America. We were invited to Florida, where we met Irv. He immediately understood the importance of that mission because he personally knew the challenges faced by people living with disabilities. And through his kindness, his belief in our vision, and extensive network, he introduced us to several accredited investors who helped support our company during its early growth. And what has always stood out to me about Irv is that his life has never been about overcoming adversity. It's been about lifting others up along the way. And whether through his national advocacy work, his support of disability inclusion, or his years volunteering with Shake a Leg, where he helped people experience freedom through adaptive sailing, Irv has consistently used his experiences to inspire hope, independence, and possibilities for others. And that's why I'm especially honored to share his story with you today. So let's get back to our conversation with Irv Rosenfeld. Irv, nice to see you again after all these
Nice
years.
to see you too, Gail.
It's been a long time.
It has been.
Yes, you were a pivotal part of the journey that Richard Cherry and I, my husband and business partner, took 30 years ago when we came to Miami upon invitation from the state of Florida
Hmm.
to bring our remote call center technology and business method. And you were a pivotal point in that because you helped us finance it.
Did, and it was a pleasure to do that.
We had several offerings and you helped bring us
Yeah,
investors.
because you were working with disabled, and I had done a lot with disabled through an organization in Miami called Shake a Leg.
Tell me about Shake a Leg.
Shake a Leg is a program I've been involved in for 32 years. We are a sailing organization that is set up for any type of disability. We have paraplegics, quadriplegics, spinal bifida, you name the disability. We get them on the boat. We teach them how to sail the boat, and they sail the boat. We have a chair built to the back of the boat to where we could put a para or a quad, whatever. We have a tiller extender so they can sit there in the chair and drive the sailboat in the chair. We have another chair built into the front of the boat where someone needs their hands because they do the small sail, which is called the jib. And then we put an AD on board, which is able-bodied, that can move around the boat, and they do the main sail. So we have two disabled people that can't get out of chairs. We have one able-bodied person, and they sail the boat. We have no engines. So you have to learn how to sail a boat in the wind, the waves, and it's not easy to do. You've got to learn. And then when you take your disability, that's unusual. We work with wounded warriors, and you name the group. I mean, paraplegics, quadriplegics, spinal bifida, you name the disability, we get them on the water and on Biscayne Bay.
How big are the boats?
Boats are 20 feet long,
Oh, that's pretty decent.
and we can put 8 people on board, 7 comfortably.
Is it a fixed keel?
It's a fixed keel, and again, it's got a 3.5-foot lead keel, 900 pounds, to keep the boat from turning over. I've been there 32 years, and we've never had a mishap. We've never harmed anybody because they teach us well, so we're very comfortable about what we do. And so I know how difficult it is for a disabled person to sail, and just to get up and get down to work, is very difficult. So here you came to me with an idea, say, well, we have a call center that you can take and do from your house. I said, from your house? He said, yes. You said, from my house. I said, so a disabled person get out of bed, go into another room and work? You said, yes. I said, well, that's great. I mean, that's remarkable because so many disabled people, it's hard for them to find work. And here they can work on their own in their own house. So I was excited to help y'all out.
Well, we were excited to work with you because of your experience. We started it in Toronto, Canada. We had a call center in the original company, and we had problems recruiting people to come in when we needed them. It was home delivery of groceries in 30 minutes. A lot of the people that ordered groceries from home were people with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And one day the light bulb went on, and it was our engineer, actually, Michael Ordanis, brilliant young man. He said, why are we bringing people to the call? Why don't we take the call to the person? And I phoned up Bell Canada at that point and said, do you have one of those call switching systems that would allow an incoming call to be switched to somebody from home, and they could just answer it there? They would be connected to our technology through a modem. And they said, no, that's not what we do. You're going to have to wait till they have voice over IP or all these other things which aren't around yet. Just do what everybody does. And we thought, well, that's not acceptable. So Michael and his good buddy, Bob Roseborough, Bob did the hardware, Michael did the software, and they got together. They designed the first board that allowed the call to come in and be switched to somebody working from home. I went out and hooked up the equipment at their home. We built in other features like call forwarding or transfer and monitoring and so on, slowly over time. We called these people that work from home cyber agents, CSRs, customer service representatives. And so they took our calls. One day I phoned up Bell Canada and I said, we need 500 more phone lines terminated in a closet in our office. And they said, well, you've used up all the phone lines already in your area. And I told them what we were doing, and they said, OMG. So they came to our building. John George was the name of the representative. He said, do you know what this means to Bell Canada and revenue? No idea. We said, Richard said, well, maybe $150 million. He did some quick math. John went back, and he came back a couple of weeks later and he said, you know what? Your numbers are all wrong. It's $650 million. They then brought Deloitte & Touche, which is a major accounting firm, to come into our offices for a month and do a study to see what the size of the market would be for people working from home answering calls for major corporations. Long story short, Bell was going to invest until the Canadian government changed their tax laws at the last minute at the end of the year. And so they called off. It was like a $75 million investment. So we said, okay, we have to look elsewhere. And that's when we entered a trade show in Orlando in August of 1995. We had a huge exhibit there, freestanding panels. We had a great big banner hanging from the ceiling with a dinosaur, one of these big long dinosaurs, and all it said was adapt or die. It drew people from all around in that exhibit to see what we were talking about. And we were the hit of the show. Siemens was there, Bell South was there, a lot of other technical companies were there. And Dr. M.J. Willard, who is the executive at National Telecommuting Institute, headquartered in Boston. What she does is help people with disabilities find work working from home. When she saw what we were doing, she said, can I help you come to the United States? She brokered or put together a group in Miami, together with the Beacon Council, the Economic Development Council of Florida, and Bell South, and Nortel. We met in November of 1995 in Miami. We put a consortium together. You helped us raise the money to grow it. The government said they were going to give us $10 million to go there. And we said, no, we're not going to touch government money. We've been down that road before and it never works out well. So invested in the schools. So Broward schools and Miami-Dade schools, their continuing education. That money paid for computers and teachers to teach the students, people with disabilities, to learn how to handle calls, learn how to use the computer equipment. And then our first client, actually, that I went around and solicited various companies was ValueJet. And I don't know if you remember what happened to ValueJet.
Oh, yes.
Just before we were to start operations for them,
They
crashed into the swamp above the Everglades. That put a temporary slowdown on things. And the school board was getting a little anxious because they had trained hundreds of people for our project and we didn't have another big customer. We had some little ones, but finally we did get one. And that was a woman who had read about us in the Teleprofessional magazine. And they were from Montgomery Ward, and they had a division of their company that did call handling for roadside service because we were doing the AAA CAA, which is like the AAA here in the US. We were doing that in Canada. So she said, okay, we could do it here. And that was the first major client that we had. And they became big fans and promoters of ours. And so the traction really started in 1996.
Minnesota.
We moved down, Richard and I got here January 1st, 1996, and we worked out of our apartments in Bal Harbour and we brought people from Canada down and gave them apartments on the beach, which was a great incentive for them to come. But that grew. And as you know, we finally sold the company in 2005 and moved on from there to other things. But without your kickstarting the investment at the beginning, investors in those offerings that we had, each step leads to another step. And that was pivotal. I used to be a stockbroker with Merrill Lynch before I met Richard, but are you licensed within a particular firm?
Yes, it's NFSG, which used to be called Newbridge, but they changed it to the letters.
I see.
And so I've been with them now for 30 years.
My goodness.
So,
yeah.
Well, working relationship. Yeah.
I know I visited you in your offices, but this is maybe 20 years ago. I can't believe how many years have gone by.
Amazing.
It's amazing. What also is your claim to fame, and we found out because when we went to visit you in your office, you took us to your car and you were smoking something really interesting in your car. And there's a whole story about this. You won't believe this, but this is the last surviving member in the world of the federal, what is it called? The federal
medical cannabis medicine that was grown by the federal government on the campus, University of Mississippi. And they had for experimentation. Well, I have a severe bone disorder called multiple hereditary exostoses. And it's a very painful disorder. I've had since age 10, many operations. I mean, I'm lucky to be alive. And all the narcotics and drugs from morphine to you name it. And then I came to college in Miami in 1971. And everybody then in 1971 was smoking marijuana. Well, I had prescriptions for every drug there was known to man. Well, I wasn't going to smoke marijuana. That's illegal. I'm not going to get arrested when I've got morphine, Quaalude, Valium. I mean, I've got every prescription there was. And after 30 days, I wasn't making any friends. And I realized I wasn't making any friends because I wouldn't smoke that garbage marijuana. Well, the apartment complex I was in were a lot of students, and they were smoking. We'd be swimming outside, and they'd go, let's go inside and party and smoke some marijuana. I wouldn't do it. And after 30 days, I realized I wasn't making any friends because I wouldn't smoke that marijuana. So I gave in to peer pressure. And I figured, well, what the hell? If that's what it takes for me to make friends, I'm going to make friends. Because I didn't go to high school. For 5 years, they wouldn't let me go to high school because I was having surgeries every year.
Oh.
So the state would not let me go to school.
Mm.
They would kick me out. Usually by latest was November. They literally would kick me out of school.
So you homeschooled?
I homeschooled, yes, and the state paid for it. I had teachers come to my house after regular class. And when you've got a teacher, a private tutor by yourself, you can do the whole school year in a month and a half. Well, they want to get paid for the entire year. So they would slow it down, try to, use the entire year. Well, most of them were young teachers, and they were taking master classes at a local university, Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, where I was from. And so if I could walk, they would say, how you doing today? Well, I'm doing pretty good. Good, let's leave. And I'd get in their car, and we'd drive 20 miles to the college. And I got them research whatever their master thesis was. So I got to learn how to use a library, because this was before the internet.
Yes.
Like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned how to do all that, which was really a great education. It was a fantastic education. So now, here I am. I graduated high school, and the doctor said, well, Irvin, maybe the one climate of Miami might be beneficial for you. So I was very active in the Jewish youth organization under B'nai B'rith.
Mm-hmm.
And the boys' chapters were called AZA. And I had girlfriends all over the country. because I didn't go to school. I could travel. So I would tell the teachers, don't come for 2 weeks, whatever. And I would travel and go somewhere and represent AZA. And I had my information with me from my doctor. So if I hurt myself, I had information to tell the doctors, this is what you do. If you don't believe me, call my doctor in Virginia. And my doctors say, whatever Irvin says, do it. He knows best. They taught me what to do. So it was great. So I went to Miami, and here I am in Miami going to college. First time I've been in school was 6 years, which was nice. But then after 30 days, I wasn't making any friends. And I'd been alone for 5 years. So I said, what the hell? I'm going to give in to peer pressure. So I started smoking. It was pure garbage, meaning nothing happened. People around me were getting high. I thought they're self-inducing it because they're not doing anything to me. So if I wanted to get high, what did I do? I drank some bourbon because that's what I'd done ever since I was 13. Is for painkiller. Alcohol is a very good painkiller. And they didn't want me taking heavy narcotics at that age. And being Jewish, we would get together every Sunday night and the men would have a shot of bourbon.
Okay.
So since I was 8 years old, I'd have a shot of bourbon. So alcohol to me was no big deal, So I would do that. And so about the 10th time I was doing that, I was playing a game of chess and I sat for 30 minutes. And I hadn't sat for more than 10 minutes in 5 years because of the tumors in my legs. And so when I realized I sat for 30 minutes, I immediately thought, what way to take all the narcotics? Will allow me to sit. I thought, wait a minute, I haven't taken a narcotic or anything in 6 hours. Well, how can I sit? Yes, that was my turn with the joy. I looked at this piece of garbage because to me, that's all marijuana was garbage. I thought, I've done this. I've smoked this garbage. I wonder if there's any medical benefit to this garbage. So I called my orthopedic surgeon who knew me since age 10. I said, Dr. Wade, is there any medical benefit to marijuana? He said, I have no idea. He said, why? And I told him what happened. He said, call your family. My great uncle at one point was head of pediatrics at Johns Hopkins. My other uncle was one of the heads of pediatrics at Yale. So I called them. I told them, I've never heard of marijuana being beneficial. No, we haven't. So we researched it. And lo and behold, I read that marijuana had been used for centuries and centuries for muscle relaxant, anti-inflammatory for pain. So I thought, maybe that's what it's doing for me. I'm not getting high or anything like that. And so that's when I really started using it. And I started realizing it, my God, this is actually a benefit. So now people start getting busted in Miami. And I was friends with a lot of police people, and I knew I was going to be busted. And I didn't like that. Well, the research that I had done, I found out the government had a farm in Mississippi that they grew for medical use. So what if I apply for that farm? My disease, multiple hereditary exostoses, is very rare. Okay. And I thought, well, if I apply for that, it's not going to open Pandora's box because not many people have this disease. So I thought, well, something, if I'm going to apply for this, I can't do it in Florida. Get back to Virginia. Virginia, the history of our country. Give me liberty, give me death. Patrick Henry. So I left school after 3 semesters. Made dean's list all 3 semesters, but I went back to Virginia and decided to take on the federal government. And my family laughed at me and said, you have no chance at all. I was 19. And I said, well, I've got no choice. I'm not a criminal. I'm a patient. And they're arresting people for marijuana. And my doctor can give me morphine, but can't give me marijuana. It doesn't make any sense. And I don't want to be busted. I'm a patient. So that was the premise. And I stuck with it. And make a long story short, it took me 10 years, but I won. And I became the second patient in the United States to have an actual prescription for medical cannabis supplied by my doctor through the federal government. So the federal government started sending me marijuana, 300 cigarettes per month in a tin can, like this tin can, which are collector's items, and 300 cigarettes per tin can. That was a monthly supply. And so I was now legal. And I had marijuana, all I needed. And so that was marvelous.
And this is your book that you wrote,
Yeah,
right?
This is my book. Yeah, because again, I was the second longest patient in the country, second patient ever in the country, and the first patient had glaucoma, and he died in 2000. So I was left, and we got up to 13 patients. The Bush administration, Bush Senior, shut the program down.
Oh,
And the 13 of us were grandfathered in. So we had to sue the government because they knew we would do that. And so the government says, we're going to let you have it as long as you live. So I've got enough government marijuana to last me the next 30 years.
oh my.
Okay. I've got plenty.
Well, I know that you roll it, right? You make little joints out of it. There's a couple here.
Yeah, I have a prescription from Florida because Florida now has a law on the books. And the dispensary in Florida is better than the government marijuana. Much better. It's like 10 times better.
Wow.
Yeah, but hey, look, I'm happy to have the government. I was very, very happy to have the government because I was legal. I could travel anywhere in the world for that matter. I didn't really travel out of the country with it, but I traveled the states. And because it was a federal prescription, an actual prescription, that I wasn't breaking any law. So I could travel with it and go on airlines with it. In fact, I got busted. I've been busted about 4, 5, 6 times. Actually, I had to sue Delta Airlines one time, and the courts came back ruling that I have every right to bring my prescription onto a plane. So I could bring my marijuana on a plane and not have a problem with it.
Well, you've been interviewed in a lot of places, including governments, I
Yeah,
believe.
I've been in Congress several times. I've spoken at the Supreme Court for a case. I've spoken at the United Nations. I've spoken in dozens and dozens of states all around the country. So I've done tons and tons of interviews. Because when I became legal, which was November of 82, there was just Bob Randall and me. We were the only two people in the world that could stand up and talk about medical cannabis and not worry about Johnny Law walking through the door to arrest us. And so what people don't understand is we've got all these laws now in this country. It's not a prescription. It's a recommendation. Meaning you cannot prescribe a Schedule I drug without a Schedule I license. You have to have a special license. Well, the government doesn't give out special licenses unless you have a reason for it. And the only reason is if you have marijuana study. So my doctor actually had a Schedule I license. So when people think they have a prescription and they can travel with it, no, they don't. They have a recommendation by the state or by the doctor to allow them to have the marijuana for whatever medical reason they have. But it's not a prescription. I'm the only one in the United States now that's alive that has a prescription
Wow.
for marijuana. So I can still travel anywhere I want. And I don't do that much traveling anymore because we've passed laws. I mean, I've done that. And so we've got millions and millions of people now in this country that have been approved and are able to get the medicine that they need. So it makes me feel good because it makes my bone disorder say, F you, because you have bone disorder, look what I've done with it. Look what I've accomplished. I've helped millions and millions and millions of people. And so it makes me feel good.
I guess so, yes. Well, what you've been doing for other people, such as at Shake a Leg, but also through your advocacy for medical marijuana. I know that there are people that have epilepsy and other seizures that have been helped a lot by a certain strain of, or intensity, I guess, of marijuana.
Right.
So it all depends on what it is. But the whole thing is that you've been doing this for years. How has it affected you as a stockbroker?
It hasn't at all. No. And now I do let any kind of new client understand that I get this because they've got to know that I use marijuana legally. I don't want them to see me on national TV, which I've done many, many times. And let's say I lost them some money. I don't want them to say, hey, Ethel, isn't that our stockbroker? He's using that marijuana and he lost us some money. We're going to sue him. So what I try to explain to clients is, do you know anybody that's ever taken on the federal government and won? And nobody knows anybody that's ever taken on the federal government and won. Well, I did. I took on the federal government and I won. The expertise I use to take on the federal government and win is the expertise I use in my business. So if you want that to help you with your investments, then you want me for a broker. If that doesn't sit well with you, then you don't. And so I explain that to them because I don't want to get sued by anybody because, again, the stock market is up and down.
The average is the average, but in between the averages, there's the roller coaster.
There is.
Yeah. And if somebody wants to find an excuse why they lost money, then they might come to you. So do you have, I guess, good mental cognition, good clarity of thinking?
I do.
While you're doing it? Does it increase it when you're taking?
No, I don't think it decreases or increases. And in fact, the funny thing is I've got to take a new license because I'm going to start managing money and I've got to take a new test, which is called a 65.
Oh, yes.
And I haven't taken a test since I was 33. And the firm is saying, think you can pass this? Yeah. Oh, I do a study for it. And,
Yeah, I've taken that one. There's several of them. What's the biggest misconception today as far as marijuana? What do you think?
I feel like the biggest misconception is to think that it affects people negatively. Anything can affect people negatively. There are substances that I would use or you would use that would not affect us negatively at all. And the next person might use it and be affected negatively. It's all on the person. It's all what their demeanor is. And so, I mean, not everybody can handle marijuana. And like I try to tell people, it's not for everybody. You try it. If it helps you, great. If it doesn't, well, that's okay too, because it's not going to help everybody. But it is a very important message to let someone try it. That's the key. Try it. If it helps, fine. If it doesn't, too bad.
Well, I had a personal experience with that. I was a nurse and my girlfriend, she and I went through nursing school together for 3 years. We were roommates, both called Gail. And after we graduated, she had an apartment downtown. And one night she invited me over for a drink. We had some wine and she had some marijuana there and I had never had it. So I had a little bit of it. And then I started to feel a little odd. So I thought, well, I'll just stop. Well, what I didn't realize is that with marijuana, it's not like a drink where you stop drinking and it fades. This was still there. In fact, it seemed to increase. So I started driving home and I literally had to hold the car door open and look at the lines on the road as I'm driving home. I didn't have far to go. I remember that vividly, and I thought, I will never touch marijuana again. It's not for me.
It does affect people, okay, and it was not easy. It was a 10-year battle. I mean, I had to get the state of Virginia behind me. I had to get the Crime Commission behind me in the state of Virginia. I had the congressman. I got University of Virginia Law School behind me. So it wasn't easy. It was a long, hard battle that I had to dig. And I never had an attorney. I never went to court. Okay. I was able to, with the University of Virginia Law School, they were able to finally arrange, they were going to sue the government. That's how Bob Randall, the first patient, got it. His doctor got an attorney, and the attorney, Steptoe & Johnson, sued the government. And that's how he got it. Well, University of Virginia Law School was going to do the same thing for me. Now, they worked with me for 3 years. And then the class that he was working with was going to be graduating. He said, Irvin, we've given the government all the information they needed, and they will not give it to you. We're going to sue the government on your behalf, like they did with Bob Randall. So he contacted FDA and said, we're going to sue you. Well, FDA said, no, wait a minute. No, don't sue us. We're going to hold hearings for Irvin. We're going to let Irvin come up to Rockville, Maryland, which is head of FDA, and we're going to give him 15 minutes to convince a panel of 19 doctors that his project was valid. So the law school called me and said, Irvin, you got to go to Rockville, Maryland for this hearing. He said, and you're going to lose, and then we're going to go into court and sue him. But you got to do that. We got to play their game. I said, we played their game for 3 years. I've been playing it for 10 years. He said, we've got to do it, Irvin. I said, okay. So drove to Rockville, Maryland, and I had printed material to give out to the 19 doctors, and it was an open hearing. So FDA is a huge, huge building with doctors everywhere. And Bob Randall lived in D.C., so he had gone there and put out banners and posters around FDA saying a federal hearing. So about 100 people showed up. Doctors, all kinds of doctors, and they showed up. So here I am that day, got 15 minutes to convince a panel of 19 doctors that my project was valid. Well, they weren't going to approve me. There's no way they were going to approve me. Again, I knew it. And University of Virginia Law School knew it. And they said, well, we'll just go into court afterwards and we'll sue them. And that's what we'll do. Okay, fine. So I go up there and I have 15 minutes to convince this panel of 19 doctors. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it. But I did. I did my best. I spoke very well. And I knew I should have convinced them, but you could see the 19 doctors weren't convinced at all. They were not going to approve it, period. Okay. So the chairman asked the audience, are there any questions? The guy in a white coat raised his hand and said, I really have a statement to make, not really a question. What's your statement? Well, I'm a visiting oncologist. I'm from Venezuela, and we have cancer patients like y'all do, and I've come here to study. And I've learned the best medicine we've got is Dilaudid, which is synthetic morphine. And this patient has stated that for 12 years, he and his doctor have been studying Dilaudid with marijuana. And they discovered that when he has marijuana to go with the Dilaudid works better and lasts longer. When he runs out of marijuana, he takes more Dilaudid. This needs to be studied with a regular supply of marijuana. And when he said that, you could see the panel's faces. It's like, oh shit, we just lost. Chairman was so stunned by that statement that he didn't know what to do. So I stood up. I said, are there any more questions or statements with the audience? There were none. So I turned to the panel. I said, gentlemen, that concludes my presentation. The guy, the head of the organization, the head of FDA, looks 9 people that way, and they all turn away from him. He looks this way, they all turn away from him. He looks at me and says, Mr. Rosenfeld, I think I can speak for the entire panel that your presentation was very eloquent and convincing, and you'll become the second person in the United States to receive medical cannabis by prescription.
Wow.
And
Congratulations. Yes. What a win.
That was nice. And so back then, there were no cell phones. This was 1982. Okay, so I said, look, I want to go call my wife. When I called my wife, I called the doctor because I was scared. The doctor did not really know what I was doing. Okay, he really didn't, because a surgeon, he said, Irvin, you got to do this on your own. He said, I'll sign anything you put in front of me, but it's your battle. Okay, I said, I'll do it. Just sign anything I need. He said, I'll do that. So I called the doctor because I was worried that they were going to call him. So I called the doctor. I got him on the phone. I said, doctor, we won. He said, where did we win? I said, we won the right for marijuana. They're going to supply my marijuana, and they're going to send it to you, and you're going to give it to me. Are you sure? I'll go, yes. This is public hearing, and it's been approved. And so I won.
Wow, that is a landmark. It is.
It was. In 1982, I became the second one, and we got up to 13 patients at one point. But really, at that point, we were down to like about six or seven patients. So the entire 330 million people in the United States, 6 or 7 of us were getting marijuana from the government. And that was it. And then the Bush administration shut the program down.
Wow.
And the 13 of us were grandfathered in, so we didn't sue them. So that drive home, it was a 250-mile drive.
Oh, you did it in one fell swoop?
Yes, I did that. Wasn't a problem, but it was just I was very excited that here I had won. And I remember calling the law school the next day, and I got the head of the law school on the phone, and he said, "Well, how'd it go?" I said, "What do you think?" He said, "Well, I told you we were going to win." He said, "So we're prepared now. We're going to go into federal court. We're going to sue." And I said, "Richard," I said, "I don't think you have to." He said, "Why not?" I said, "I won the hearing." He said, "You what?" "I won the hearing." He said, "How'd you do that?" So I told him what happened. He said, "Amazing. An oncologist in Venezuela." The law
What was the key
was the
witness?
key. Was the key
Yes.
witness. Yes.
Yes. And did you ever stay in touch with that doctor?
No, because when I went back to the room after I made the phone call, he was gone.
Maybe he was an angel. You never know.
Well, God was looking upon me that day. That's for sure. You know?
Well, if you could change one thing about medical marijuana or medical cannabis, what would it be?
It would be a better understanding for doctors to understand it's a medicine. Because a lot of doctors still don't believe it, and they really don't. And the ones that do, they're in it for the money, a lot of them are. Okay, they're in it for dispensaries, and how much money can we make off of it? They're not in it for the patient. And that's the sad part, because what Bob Randall and I wanted was medicine that would help people. I mean, glaucoma is a devastating disease. I've never had it, but it saves your eyesight. I mean, marijuana saves your eyesight.
Well, for people with glaucoma.
Yeah. And I mean, anti-nausea for chemotherapy. I mean, it's a needed medicine, but people want to, how much money can we make off of it? It's a money issue.
I
And
see.
that's what states have done. And so it's really sad because they don't give education to the doctors to teach them the benefits of medical cannabis. They give them enough knowledge to where they understand it a little bit, but then they allow them to make recommendations to patients to give them a recommendation that they can go to a dispensary. And there's a good chance that dispensary is owned partially by the doctors.
Oh, yeah. So just follow the money, as they say.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that bone condition, as you mentioned, that was the start of it. And I know that you've had to live with that ever since, but this has certainly put you in a better position to manage your life with that bone condition, right? So
So it has.
without that, you may not be in the same spot.
The disease I have is called multiple hereditary exostoses, which means bone tumors on the ends of long bones of the body. Now, a lot of people have it. Okay, they really do. They have one or two, three. When I was diagnosed at age 10, I said I had over 200.
My gosh.
And they said there's a good chance you might not outlive your teenage years because the tumors can grow into a bad area and you need surgery. They can grow quickly, you need surgery. They said if it goes into a growth center or something like that, it could kill you.
Mm.
It could go malignant and kill you. He said, so we're going to teach you, and the doctor can't make a decision. You've got 70 tumors. We could operate on you once a week and never get them all. So therefore, we're going to teach you what to do. I was 10 years old. They sent me because of my uncle at Yale. When we called him about the disease, he knew the disease. So did my great uncle from Johns Hopkins. But they really weren't all that familiar with it. And so my uncle looked into it and said the center is Boston Children's Hospital. Well, 2 days later, I was at Boston Children's Hospital at age 10.
Mm.
My father drove me up there, my family. We went there and I saw the top doctor in the world on this disorder. And he explained to my parents, he said, look, you cannot make any decision for him. A doctor cannot make any decision for him. Turned to me at age 10 and said, Irvin, you got to make all the decisions. You got to do it all yourself.
Decisions about what, though?
When to have surgery.
Oh,
And
when is it painful enough and so on?
Painful enough and where it grows, where it's centered, how much it grows. I mean, there's all kinds of restrictions to it. And they said, Irvin, you've got so many tumors that we just cannot operate on you all the time. We've got to pick and choose which ones to do. You've got to decide yourself. How I discovered the disease is I was playing baseball. And the ball was hit to me at shortstop, and I threw the guy out at first for the last out of the game. And after I did that, my arm went paralyzed. And I just threw the ball out, and my arm just went paralyzed. I couldn't move it. And of course, my parents were there, the coach ran out. They said, what's wrong? I said, I can't move my arm. And the hospital was across the street.
Mm.
So how long did it take them to get me in a car and drive me to the emergency room across the street? 5 minutes. Got out of the car. I was fine.
No.
No problem. Okay, so we go in, they take an x-ray. What happened? You broke your wrist when you were a baby, and you have a jagged bone sticking out, and the nerve got twisted around the jagged bone, and you went paralyzed. It eased up off that nerve. Don't worry about it. Go home. Well, my mother had worked with my great uncle at Johns Hopkins for about 3 or 4 summers. She said it just didn't make sense to her. So she said, I'm taking an orthopedic surgeon tomorrow. Went to the orthopedic surgeon, and he took x-rays, and he's seeing these bumps everywhere in my body. He said, I know what you have. And he told me, back then it was named multiple congenital cartilaginous exostosis. He said, I know what this is. He said, but I don't know how to treat it. He said, I have no idea. In Boston Children's Hospital, there were about 30 students that were interns and residents, and they took me under the wing. One thing I forgot to say is when I went to Boston Children's Hospital, the doctor, who was the top doctor in the world, he said, son, for as bad off as you are, and he said, this is the worst case I've ever seen. He said, the second best doctor in the world is a guy named Henry Wade. And you're lucky. He was in the Navy, and he studied at the Portsmouth Naval Hospital in your hometown of Portsmouth, Virginia. And guess where he's settling and going to start practicing? In Portsmouth, Virginia, your hometown. He said, so you're going to have the second best doctor in the world at your home. So I called Henry Wade because I was his first patient. I went to his house before he started practicing. I went to him, I said, look, my wrist is bothering me and starting to bother me writing. I'm worried about baseball. He said, what do you want? I said, I'm going to take it out. Well, he operated on me. And within a month, he never knew I had surgery. I've been doing it now since I was 18 and a half. And I'm 73. In 2014, in the Guinness Book of World Records, it mentioned that saying I'd smoked more marijuana I could qualify for than anybody in the world.
Wow. He's in the Guinness Book of Records.
Yes, because
for cannabis.
They knew it was 10 a day, for however many years I'd had it. And so it was documented. I mean, most people can't document how much they smoke. They say, well, I smoked a lot or whatever, but they don't have documentation. I had documentation.
Right, of course.
That I've been smoking this much, and it's not been detrimental to me in any way.
So do you find that there's any stigma about you? Are there people that dismiss you out of hand that you're...
I've run across it. Yes, I've run across it. But it's also opened a lot of doors for me. I mean, I was able to travel around the country to all these different states, and I was able to help patients. So because of the bone disorder, I had some people against. I'm sure there are people against me still, but I don't let that worry me. And now that I've had laws passed, in 2/3 of the states, especially the ones I've been in, all passed it. Even Minnesota did finally. I've done a lot of good with it.
Well, this book that you wrote, My Medicine.
Yeah.
I believe you said that they're thinking of doing a documentary on this?
No, they're actually thinking of a full-length movie.
Wow.
Yeah. Because again, this is the entire history of the medical marijuana movement in this country. From the beginning up to the election of Obama in 2008. And so this is the entire history because I'm the one who pioneered it.
Yes.
And so I wanted written proof. And because, again, I'm the one who did it. All the trials and tribulations, from groups that were against me, like Drug Free America. I've had battles with them. I even crashed a convention one year in Orlando. The book is a chapter called In the Lion's Den. We found out that they were having a hearing in Orlando, and they were flying in the drug czar. And they were flying people in from all around the country to go against medical marijuana. Okay. And I found out about it. So I figured, well, I want to go speak. So I called them up. I said, look, you're having this conference. You're flying people in on taxpayers' money. Yeah. To teach people how to go against medical marijuana. Yeah. I said, well, let me speak. This way they'll know exactly how to go against us. Because I'll be there speaking. I'm the federal patient. Oh, they weren't going to do that. We're not going to let you come speak. So I applied to get permission to come there, which I did. They couldn't stop me from that. So then they would not let me speak. So I decided I'm going to hold my own press conference at the hotel in Orlando.
Before the conference or after?
After the conference or during it or whatever. I was going to hold my own press conference. They weren't going to let me speak. Media's going to be there. All these people are going to be there. I'll hold my own press conference. So I called my own press conference. And with the 3 TV stations, 2 newspapers, they were all there. And they knew I was doing it. When I drove up there, I got there early, like about an hour and a half early. And there were about 15 state troopers there. Well, they knew exactly who I was. They knew my car. They knew me. I pulled to the closest parking spot, which was handicapped. I have a handicap ticket, sticker. And I got out of the car and I'd been smoking. So I've got a joint in my hand. I've got a short sleeve shirt on. I've got my dress pants on, but I had to change my shirt to a long sleeve shirt and put my tie in. So I get out of the car. I go around to the other side of the car and here come the police. I said, good morning. They said, yeah. I said, I hear the governor's going to be here today. No, governor's not coming. Awful lot of police for no governor. And I knew the police were there for me. Okay. So I take off my shirt. I put on a long sleeve shirt. I put my tie on. And meanwhile, I'm smoking the entire time. And the cops are there. And I'm not letting them worry me. So I finish getting dressed. I start walking into the building, into the hotel. And the police are all around me. Okay. So I walk in there. And there are another 20 cops inside the hotel. They all knew who I was. They all were hoping that I would do something so they could arrest me. So I looked around to who had the most stripes. And it was a woman that had the most stripes on their arm. So I went to that woman. I said, where's the conference? They said, up the escalator. I said, thank you very much. So I went up the escalator with my cops, 3 on the side of me, 3 on this side of me, 3 in front of me. I mean, they surrounded me. I get up to the second floor, and there's a table with everybody's names. And sure enough, it was my name, the package. So allowed in. So I go there, and there's nobody in the room. It's like a room set up for like 300 people, and they had 3 microphones in the middle of each aisle. Okay, there's 3 aisles. So I go and sit beside the left side, right by the microphone. So I stand up, and I'm right in front of the microphone. Okay, so that's where I sat. Well, when I sat down, the police sat around me. Okay, so, that's what happened. So now the first speaker was Bill Bennett, who was a drug czar back then for the United States. And he spoke, and then you could ask a question. Well, I stood up to ask my question, and people stood behind me. And then the other 2 areas, people spoke and had questions. And they went to the end on the right side, and they went to the middle, and went back to the right side. They went to the middle.
And they kept ignoring you.
They kept ignoring me. Well, the people behind me realized they ain't calling on us. Okay. So, and I'm kind of laughing to myself, knowing why they're not calling on me. Okay. So they filtered over to the other 2 mics to ask their questions. And so I'm standing there. I've got my tin can full of marijuana from the federal government, and I don't say a word. No, I'm not going to get arrested. And they're not going to be able to arrest me unless I do something. So they never called on me. So now Bill Bennett says, okay, we're going to they finished speaking. You may ask all the people ask their questions except for me. They weren't going to call on me. He said, they're going to have a press conference now. Aha, the press are here. Okay, so I try to get in the room. Not allowed. I tried to go out to the next room to do it. Wouldn't allow. Okay, so now this hallway, this area, had like 10 rooms with the blinds open, and the rooms were empty. All the rooms were empty. So I turned to the cop beside me, one of the cops. Okay, would you please get me somebody from the hotel? And the cop went off and did it, which I was shocked as hell. But he did. Guy from the hotel comes, and I said, look, can I use one of these rooms for a press conference? No. They were all taken. And the curtains were wide open. There was nobody in any room. I said, they're all empty. No, they're taken. You can't use any of those rooms. Okay. So the press conference ends, and the media comes out, and I raise my voice. I go, I'm Irvin Rosenfeld. Well, they all turned around and came over to me. They said, oh, Irvin, we're here early because the press conference I called for like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And this was now 10:30 in the morning. I said, look, I'm here now. And the media said, we're here now. Let's hold the press conference. I said, well, I was trying to get one of these rooms, but they said that they were all being occupied. And the media looked and goes, they're being occupied? That's what the person at the hotel just told me. But the person said, yeah, they're all occupied. He said, I heard y'all have ghosts here, but I didn't realize there was that many. So I turned to the cops, the people. I said, where can I go? And they said, very simple. There's a big glass window, and this was a mall. They said, you see where the parking lot ends with the mall? Yeah. That's where you can hold your press conference. Okay. That's fine. I can do that. And the media, of course, got big cameras and everything else, and they're not looking to walk a mile to the other end of the parking lot. With this thing. I said, come with me. Let's go. So we go downstairs, go on the escalator. We go outside, and I got there at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's now 10:30 in 3.5 hours. Guess what I need to do? I need to smoke. Whose car is in the front parking lot, right in front of the hotel? Fine. Okay, so I go in my car. I unlock the front door. I take off my sport coat. I pull out my baggie with marijuana in it, and I light up a joint. And I start talking. Well, the media realized what I was doing. I would talk and give them the soundbite and then leave enough room before or after so they could put the question in at the studio. Here's my answer. Now you got to put the question in because I could not give a press conference. And the people that were running the conference came in and they said, you can't hold a press conference here. I said, I'm not holding a press conference. I'm just talking. I'm taking my medicine from the federal government. And I'm just talking to my new friends, but I'm not holding a press conference. No. And I did that for like 30 minutes. Got everything I needed to say. I said, okay, I'm ready now to walk to the end of the parking lot, and do the press conference. And the media said, oh, we don't have time anymore. Sorry. Forget it. Of course, they got all the information they needed. Okay. So I'd done what I needed to do. So I went back in, and sure enough, my seats were still there. They didn't take my seats away. So I sat there. Then they finished and broke for lunch. So I went there and had lunch, went back upstairs, and there were my seats still there. So I sat down. They had more speakers, and I did not try to speak. The last speaker was an oncologist, and he was speaking about how bad marijuana is for cancer. I knew how beneficial it is for cancer. I had a question. So I stood up, and I knew right away they weren't going to call on me. And nobody got behind me that time because they knew nobody's calling on me. So they went back to the right, back to the center, back to the right, back to the center. And the person in the center, they said, what's your question? And you had a minute to ask your question. She said, my question is, I'm head of the National PTA. And my question is, why won't you let him ask a question? So they called on me. They go, "What's your question?" So I knew I had a minute to ask a question. So I stated how I was the federal patient, the second one in the country, and that I was here to give them information about how to go against us for medical marijuana. Because they spent all this money bringing in Bill Bennett and everybody else, and that if they let me speak, they would know how to go against me and go against us. That's if they don't let me speak. So my
Oh,
question
wow.
is this, and my question is, why wouldn't you let me ask a question? And the moderator for Drug Free America said, we should have never let you in. That was the end of it. So as I'm walking out, the woman comes over to me and says, I'm curious, what would your question have been? I said, my question would have been, why wouldn't you let me speak when you would know exactly how to go against us? And here I am, the federal patient. She said, well, I have a question for you. What do you tell kids? I said, very simple. I said, just like when I moved into my neighborhood in Florida, I said, I went around to all the neighbors and told them, federal patient, I use marijuana legally. If I'm outside smoking, understand it's my prescription.
If there was somebody in their 60s or 70s that were having pain for some kind, what would you say to them about medical marijuana? Because most of the people that watch me are people over 50, usually in their 60s or older, and they want to stay strong and sharp and thrive to 95 or beyond. What would you say to them?
We started an organization 15 years ago called the Silver Tour that was geared to senior citizens to teach them about the benefits of medical cannabis. And how it really began was through Judaism. I had a friend in California who was pretty religious, and she was Reform Judaism, which is the lower rung of Judaism, and she had gone to the National Convention. She put a bill in that passed that said the Reform movement was in favor of medical marijuana. And so it passed. And so therefore the Reform movement nationwide was in favor. So here we started an organization to speak to senior citizens. And we thought, hey, wouldn't that be great? We'll go to synagogues here. We'll say they passed it on the Reform side, and we can speak to senior citizens. And that's what we did. And so, in fact, there's a documentary out that people should watch called Should Grandma Smoke Pot? And it's on YouTube. It's online. It's a half-hour show. I'm in it, and it's with Bobby Platshorn. That's the gentleman that came up with the idea for senior citizens. Because Bobby was the main smuggler of marijuana in this country in the low 70s from Colombia, which Colombian gold was being brought in by him. And he was a great person. He was a great person. We got busted. And he served 29 years in federal prison. He was the first guy arrested under the RICO statute. And they finally let him out. And he had a good parole officer who let him do basically what he's doing. And he was going around raising money, speaking about the benefits to people. And he and I became friends. And one day he called me up. He said, Irvin, we're schmucks. He said, what are we doing? He said, we're going to all these conferences and we're speaking to the choir. What good is that? You're already in favor of it. Why are we wasting our time and our money to go and speak to that? It's fun. It's a lot of fun to do that. To be put on a pedestal because we're the leaders. But what good is it? He said, we need to go to audiences that don't know about medical marijuana. And he's the one that came up with the Silver Tour. And so that's what we started doing. We started going to the senior citizens, to nursing homes, to synagogues, to churches, saying, hey, let us speak before your group and let us speak to the adults, to the seniors, and teach them about medical cannabis. And that's what we did. So we really got to know a lot of senior citizens and taught them that this is beneficial. And they were so happy and so glad that we were, because a lot of them wanted to try it, but they were scared. And so we convinced them, no, you can try this. If it helps, great. If it doesn't, don't do it. And you got to be able to get the right amount for you. We don't want people really getting high so much off of it, because that's, some people think the higher you get, the better the medicine is. It's not true. Okay. You don't need to get high to have the medical aspect of it. You really don't. I mean, I don't get high. Never have. My body just doesn't do it. And which, like my friend said, it's kind of, I'm jealous of them because they do get high and I don't. You can take it in chewable form. You can take it in pills. Well, titrating it in smoke is easier because it goes into your body really quickly and it's easier to titrate. So you basically can tell how much you've taken in and you can quit when you've had enough. It's where if you swallow it in a pill form, a gummy form or whatever, it can be sometimes too strong and you can get messed up off of it. And we don't want people messed up off of it. We don't want people driving with it. We don't want kids to use it. I mean, period. Unless, of course, you need it. I mean, that was one of the tough things is I've had people call me, and especially my disease. Okay, they have it. your kid has it. And it's saying, I've got a 4-year-old child here. Should I use marijuana with him? Yeah, tough a conversation that is. I go, depends on the child. I said, it really depends on the child. And you've got to do small amount, microdoses, basically, a very small amount to see how they act with it. And because some doctors think that it stunts the
Oh, wow.
synapses for learning, and they do. They believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're qualified doctors. I'm not. Okay, I'm a good guy. I know about marijuana, but I'm not a qualified doctor. So, like I tell the people, look, if I'd have known about marijuana when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I knew about this disease, I would have wanted to use it. Okay, I was strong enough to do it, but we didn't know it until age 10 because the body had to develop.
Exactly.
It came out in 2000 because I was 50 years old. And I wasn't sure how much longer I was gonna live, and I wanted to have the book. Randall, the first patient, wrote his book as he was dying, and so when he finished the book, he ended up dying like a year and a half, 2 years later. So he couldn't enjoy the book, and so I figured, you know something? I'm not sure how long I'm gonna live, and so I started when I was 50 years old writing the book. It took me 3 years to write the book. And then 1 year to edit it. I had a bunch of doctors that read the book and gave me some suggestions here and there. And when the book was written, I have a friend who said he'd edit the book. He was an editor and he had gone to journalism school in Harvard. And so I asked him to help me because I'd never written anything in my life. He said, Irvin, I'm not going to help you write the book. He said, but I'll edit it once you finish it. He said, I'm going to give you a couple hints. Number one, the first chapter has to be something that's going to make people want to read the rest of the book. So pick a story that's a really good story, okay, that people are going to want to read that one article, and it's going to make them want to read the rest of the book. So I picked the story of going to FDA, first chapter before FDA. And then what I did is I wasn't sure what to do, but they said, you know, you've got all these articles. You've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles. He said, use them. Take them out and write them up. All kinds of stories that I thought were great. He took out of the book until it got down to 288. He said, okay, 288 is about right. He said, that's a good size of the book. And that's what we printed. And that's what we went with. We were starting the movement here in Florida to pass it. And so I got hooked up with a group that were meeting all around the state every Saturday and Sunday somewhere, you know, mostly in this area. And so he said, Irvin, I want you to come speak. He said, we'll sell your book at the program. He said, everybody who buys your book can put their name in a tin can. And then at 420, because that's vernacular for marijuana, 420.
Oh,
He said, at 420, we'll pick a name out of that can and they get the can. And I went, that's great. You know, and they bought the can. The group bought the can. They're not made anymore. And so we sold them for 420. So I'd sell the book. And back then the books were $20. Now they're like 25 because printing's gone up, you know, since then. And I sold a lot of books, okay, that way. And sold a lot of tin cans. And like I said, I have enough medicine here from the government to last me another 30 years.
it is so important to get out to the world. And for that, I really congratulate you. It's an honor knowing you, Irv, on several fronts. And I appreciate you taking the time today to sit down with me and tell me your story and get reacquainted after all these years. Was there any parting thought or something that we didn't talk about today that you'd like to talk about?
I just want to say how happy I am to have gotten to meet you and Richard, your husband, who's no longer with us. I mean, y'all are great people. And the fact that you wanted to help disabled, that to me was tremendous. And I know how difficult all these people are to have a job. And so that always meant something to me. Like, you know, what can I do to help them? And y'all came along. And I went, hey, wait a minute. This company will help my people from Shake-a-Leg. Because I know how hard it is for a disabled person to get up and get dressed and go to work.
That's why we're here. My motto is I help folks over 50 stay strong, sharp, and thrive to 95 or beyond. And that's what you're helping us do. Thanks again.